New Beginnings, written and read by Fern Britton. Then. "I want Marmite on my toast, not Dairy Lee," Libby yelled downstairs at the top of her voice. The day Christie's life changed forever began just like any other. Her 9-year-old daughter was sulking on her bed. Nick called up to her. "Darling, we don't have Marmite. Mummy's told you she'll get some later. How about honey? Now come and give your old dad a kiss goodbye, gorgeous girl." "No." Libby already had a very definite mind of her own. "Well, you'll have to go hungry, get weak and feeble, and you won't be able to go out on your bike with me at the weekend." "Don't care." Christie came out of the kitchen drying her hands on a tea towel. "Libby, come down here right now and eat your breakfast, or you'll be late for school." "I hate you!" "Don't speak to Mummy like that, madam. And I hate you too." "Oh, she's definitely from your mother's side." Nick slid an arm around Christie's waist. "See you later, my beautiful, clever wife. Love you. Bye, Freddie." He kissed them both, and Christie watched the back of his familiar head as he walked away down the mews. Her morning happened as every morning happened, wrestling with Libby's stubbornness, coaxing both kids into the car and getting them off to their schools. And by 9:45 she was back indoors and ready to clear the breakfast debris. It was then that the phone rang. The rest of the day was filled with such pain that much of it she couldn't recall. She'd been told that Nick had died, suddenly, on the pavement, 200 yards from his office, and that bystanders had attempted to revive him while calling for an ambulance. She remembered the hospital doctor, young, inexperienced at breaking this kind of bad news to a wife who needed to know exactly what had happened to her husband. It was a pulmonary embolism, he explained. It could have happened to anyone. How? Why? Why? At last she was taken to the mortuary, where Nick lay in a silent, nondescript room that she supposed had housed many corpses, and heard many tears and farewells. He was cold and gone from her, with a bruise on his cheek where he'd apparently hit the pavement. Had he been dead before he hit the ground? Had he had any warning? She climbed up next to him and put her arms round him. He was cold. If only she could have closed her eyes and let go of her own life right there and then, she would have. She stayed there, feeling utterly empty, hopeless. Her sane self stayed outside her body, looking down at the sad sight she made lying next to him. Someone opened the door, asked if she was all right. Of course she wasn't bloody all right. She kissed Nick goodbye for the last time, and then sat outside waiting to be told what to do next, as she let the silent tears spill onto her coat. Later, Fred stared at her, silent, his eyes big with incomprehension. Libby wailed, clinging to her as if she was the only life raft in a stormy sea. "Mummy, I didn't kiss him. I told him I hated him. It's my fault. I love Daddy. I wanted to come home." Libby's grief was so huge and suffocating that Christie wanted to slap her, to shout at her. In more pain than she had ever experienced, what she wanted to say was right on the tip of her tongue. "Don't you think I want him home too? He's my husband, the love of my life. I'm his wife. I need you to comfort me." But what she actually did was cuddle and kiss and console. Chapter 1. Now. "Why do we have to stay with her?" Libby slammed the door of the battered Peugeot estate. "I don't want to." Christie, lugging overnight bags into the car boot, bit back her reprimand about the door, not wanting to provoke her daughter's temper any further. Instead, she forced herself into her best unruffled mother mode. "You know that I'm staying the night with Auntie Mel, so she can help me sort out what I'm going to wear tomorrow. You're going to stay with Granny, who can't come here because she's got an early morning Pilates class tomorrow." She tried to keep the amusement out of her voice. The idea of her mother and her friends as Pilates devotees always made her smile. In the rearview mirror she could see Libby looking thunderous, her straight hair cut into a neat bob with a fringe that almost hid her frown. Across the bridge of her nose was a smattering of freckles that ran into her flushed cheeks, while her rosebud mouth was drawn into a tight line. "Can't we come too?" 9-year-old Fred begged as they began to reverse down the drive towards the lane. "Freddie, I've already...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?